we did countywide redistricting. That was the plan. And then when we had the directive come down that we had to look at voting systems, that caused a huge amount of work that we did not know we were going to have, this year. And so but with the idea knowing that in 2020 we really just could not sustain having the number of registered voters that we had in some of our largest precincts. So what my staff and I did is that we targeted our top 5 precincts in the county that had the highest registered voters in those precincts. And that's what we were focused on at this point. Those are the first ones that we wanted to look at. Knowing that at some point we need to look at all of our precincts, but just time at this point wasn't on our side. So my proposal to the board is that we look at these top 5 precincts, and I don't, did I hand this out to you guys? I don't know if I did, because I probably didn't know if we were going to get to this. So I looked at the largest 5, and so that is Cornwall, Jackson West, North Cornwall North, South Londonderry Campbelltown, and Swatara. Those are our 5 largest precincts as far as registered voters. And the folks in GIS were nice enough to provide us maps of those precincts. And what we did then is my staff and I went through them, and we basically came up with a plan on how we could split those precincts. I don't know how, Jamie, if you want me to pass these around somehow, or leave them here for them to look at, or I could set them over there if they want to get up.
Why don't you hold them up and just walk through them a little bit?
Okay, sure.
That might be best. Maybe over there in case you can see it, or if you want to slide across.
I'm not a very good fan, I'm sorry.
Rather than everybody having one and looking at it, this way you can at least.
Okay, so we'll start with Cornwall. I'm just going to go in alphabetic order. So Cornwall right now, at the time we did this, had registered 3,557 registered voters. So what we did is we wanted to do a clear plan to try to split the Cornwall district to try to get it as even as possible. So what we came up with is splitting it to a north and a south. And what we did is I wanted to try to keep the polling locations that we had that have served us well in these 5 precincts that we looked at. So Sacred Heart has been a very good precinct for us. Lots of parking, ADA accessible, and so we wanted to keep that as one of our precinct locations. But what we ran into is that we also were thinking about using Cornwall Manor as a precinct location, but they are so close together it didn't work to use Cornwall Manor and Sacred Heart. And so what we did is when we looked at the split, we had to look at the fact that we cannot split any census blocks. So the folks in GIS, they were nice enough to give us all the road mappings and all of the census blocks so that we knew where we could kind of divide without breaking those blocks. And so what we did is we tried to break it as much as we could that made sense as far as geographically, but also number of voters. And so in this case, what we did is that we kind of broke it. Now this one didn't break as nice as we would have liked to, just because of the fact that we couldn't find a way to get Cornwall Manor in a different precinct. But the good thing about Cornwall Manor is that they provide transportation to Sacred Heart now for their residents that want to go down to vote. Plus we have a very good relationship with them for those individuals that can't get to the polling location to vote by absentee ballot. We work with their activities people all the time and getting absentee ballots and things to them. So we felt that we couldn't get the split the way we wanted, we still felt really good about the fact that we have a really good plan in place for Cornwall Manor to get those individuals to vote. And then we looked at the bottom section then of where we would actually want to split it and kind of relieve some of the stress off of Sacred Heart. And so what we did is we just kind of looked at locations for polling locations once we made that split of what could be ADA accessible, what would be close for individuals in the population. And we have not contacted any of these locations. This is just us kind of just looking at the map and people that we think that might meet the criteria and might be willing to do it. And so that's when we came up with Alden Place at their community center as possibly being the new polling location for what we would then deem Cornwall South. And that's kind of what we did, and then you can kind of see in the handout I just gave you how that would split that district. Ideally, we would love to be able to have them a little bit less than that, but when you're just looking at the map and where we could break it off, I think this at least alleviates it being up over 4,000, or 3,500 in this case. Do you want me to mention what we did today, or?
I'll go ahead and go through those. I'm going to touch on that.
Okay, so that's Cornwall. Any questions before I keep?
No, just remind me what you said about implementation time. You were thinking of waiting till after the...
No, this I want to implement by, not this election, by the primary.
By presidential, yes.
Yes.
Well, by presidential, but the primary next year. That's what the plan is for this.
Let me just inject here,
Sure.
just, maybe beforehand should have set it up, but yes. The goal here is to avoid the waits and the lines and so on in the last presidential election that we had. Some of them were 2 hours plus. We heard stories of that, you know. So, but to tackle the entire county and at the same time implementing new voting machines, you know, I'm not sure we have the staff to do all of those tasks at the same time, and I'm not sure we want to do that to the voting public at the same time either. But in order to alleviate some of the pressure, that's why Michael picked the top 5 of the largest. That doesn't mean, you know, the 6th one is still pretty large.
Yeah.
But you got to draw the line somewhere and say, okay, we can manage this for now, and more later. Go ahead.
I'd just like to recall when we had a challenge and they wanted to consolidate city precincts. The argument went before Judge Klein, and I'd have to go back and review this. But if my recollection is correct, part of the issue is we must at least consider the entire county, and we don't have a sheet like this for all of the precincts.
Correct.
And that to go ahead with this without considering all of the precincts would not be
If you hold that thought, when he goes through these 5, I'll address that.
okay.
If you don't mind.
Yep, because we actually thought of it. Okay, so the next that we looked at is Jackson, and Jackson West is our 2nd largest precinct with just over 4,000 registered voters. And one of the things with Jackson is that they are run so efficiently that we haven't had the complaints that we have had at some of the other precincts because of the number of registered voters. I can tell you that the biggest issue with Jackson is parking, because I vote there. But when we picked the top 5, it's number 2, so it got included. And so what we did here is we did a split that kind of took out the top part. So this would create a north and a west, and keeping Jackson East the same. The issue with Jackson East is with the way that this is set up is that even if we tried to bring East over to take some from West instead of making a whole new precinct, is the way that the census blocks, you're going to hear me talk about this a lot, it wouldn't, we could come over this way a little bit and try to pick up some voters, but there isn't a lot of voters down here. They're here, and they're here. And so this would keep Jackson, or up here, because this is where I live. So this is Wheatland Manor. This is Fallen Oaks, which is fairly new. This is the Gables here, and this is, did you think of it? The name of that community that we couldn't think of this morning?
Are you in Myerstown?
Yeah.
Yes, right off 422. It's the Joni lives in there, and what is the name of the?
Keep going, we'll find it.
Yeah. I was gonna say, does it have it on Arbor Gate? Arbor Drive. That's how I figured it out. Arbor Gate. We couldn't think about this point. So Arbor Gate here. So basically, what it does is it takes the top part and makes this a new precinct. And we looked at the Kutztown Fire Hall as a polling location. And with this split, you'll see we did really well with this. This one almost split it right in half. So we got each precinct down to 2,000.
And again, those new locations, no one has spoken to them.
Right.
So, you know, I don't want anybody out there to get upset.
Well,
I mean, it'll go out. We've got our YouTube, but I just don't want anybody to get upset because this is in its infancy at this point.
Right.
This is just looking at a map saying, what's a likely location that would also be ADA accessible,
Absolutely.
have parking, all the things that he mentioned, and there's just some that you can easily well, not so easily always, but look and say, this one would work. If we move forward, we would then approach those locations. So,
Absolutely, and this next one is a good one because North Cornwall was the biggest one as far as us trying to find a polling location. So North Cornwall, as you can see, we had 2,800 registered voters, and this one would split basically 1,500, 1,300, and you can see how much space would be in the what we would call the 26 West. The issue is there's just not a whole lot of it's a lot of residential area, but then isn't that also where the dairy farm is?
yeah, there aren't a lot of community buildings.
Right. There's no churches. There's no fire halls. And so what we ended up looking at for this one was the City of Lebanon Water Authority is possibly asking them about, and I would have to go to that building. I'm not sure if it's ADA, but that's
right on Ridgeview Drive there, on the way back to the methadone clinic, past the water.
And then keeping, and you can see how populated this would be to keep this one as 26 North, and that would keep its current polling location at the North Cornwall Township Building. And then we tried to split using major roads as much as possible, just so that we would have a clear definition when we did that. So then you kind of see how that is. But just the way the population is, you're still going to have that split where it's going to be pretty even though geographically it doesn't look that way. So the next one would be, and you're going to see the same thing here with South Londonderry. In South Londonderry, what we did with this one is we originally tried to look to see if we could do something with lawn in Campbelltown to maybe see if we could readdress the lines. Unfortunately, we couldn't, and the main reason being is that when you're looking at lawn, there is a great big huge census block that's right here that would, if we tried to bring lawn up, there's no line for the census block that would allow us to bring it up and make sense. It comes all the way up here to the top, and so then these people, if we tried to move them into lawn, could have a home that's way up here. They'd have to drive all the way down to lawn. And so what we did is we decided just to split Campbelltown into two different polling locations using Horseshoe Drive, which is I guess 322, as our dividing point. And then looking at that's the VFW, I believe, right? American Legion. American Legion as a polling location, and you can see how densely populated that is, and then still using the fire company for Campbelltown. And then here we would have a name change mechanism, because we would drop the name of Campbelltown and we would call it 31 North, 31 Middle, and then Lawn would become 31 South.
Not purely 322 and Forge Road.
Oh yes,
Because
thank
that
you.
development there, that's actually the
We
one
actually needed a couple
by the
more
tornado
up here, so
back.
we had to.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
like Lantern Drive and some others, I think, if I'm remembering right, over in there.
Yep.
So subdivision's about 15 years.
And that was all about getting the numbers more even to what you're seeing here, which is also a very, very good split. And obviously these will change over time, but we did the best we could. We had to basically take a snapshot of time when we did this, and obviously they've changed obviously even since when we did that snapshot, because we started this probably in the spring to even look at this. So then we in the last one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So then we're at Swatera. So Swatera also was the other precinct, and you can see here the way this worked was just that we had such a large area just to get the number of voters to get close. But the way this works is by us splitting it, then in the north would be the township building, and then, so these individuals would still vote there, which would not be a change for them, because right now someone lives up here, they're already voting down here anyway, and then and having a south, and then looking at the Bunker Hill Fire Company to be the polling location there. And then you can see that that's a pretty decent split. That was hard trying to get that one split to get it in a reasonable. I don't mess about all my maps.
So let me speak to your question, Commissioner Litz. Back, I think it was 2006. Commissioner Stoller had at that time initiated a proposal, filed it with the court to consolidate that's one of the differences I believe we're looking at here, to consolidate some of the precincts in the city, because there's a low number of registered voters and a low turnout historically in those precincts. And so I believe for the purpose of cost savings, that we're not having as many polling places open on a given election day, he had proposed to consolidate those. That went before Judge Klein, and there was some opposition to that. Ultimately, Judge Klein denied it and said, and by the way, when you're looking at these, you need to look at the whole county. Okay. I'm well aware of that. That's, you know, that, and there's also a provision in there that these precincts should, with good cause, I believe are the words that are used. Good cause. Be approximately 1,200 voters per precinct. Well, these don't meet that at this point. Few in the county meet that at this point without really dividing things into smaller precincts. And it's, you know, I haven't spoken to the solicitor about this. He would have to file the petition for this, so on, and you know, you guys have to first give your okay to go a little further and proceed with this. But number one, or I should say, two things are different. This is not consolidating because there's an effort to save some money and, you know, just trim the number of precincts. This is dividing in order to make the voting experience shorter and not impact turnout, where I would not doubt at all if the people that turned around and went home because they saw the line, you know, coming out of the Campbelltown Fire Company, and then they didn't come back to vote in the presidential election. And that's something that we have to work very hard to prevent. So I think that the purpose of this is different. It's for voter convenience. And secondly, there is some precedent, I believe, out there where counties, and we have to look for this, but I believe it's out there, Michael believes it's out there, that counties have successfully not done the entire county and have divided districts, or divided precincts into others that are more than 1,200. So while the law says that, we believe that it's been done before, which would lend itself to making the argument that it could be done here. But again, that's a conversation that should be had with our solicitor, so he can do some of that research. This is the mechanics of it. This is Mike and his staff going through and drawing these lines and drawing them again, and working really closely with GIS to just make sure these can work, that they're as convenient as they can be. It's not making someone's situation worse in terms of having to go a lot further. You know, that's why Lawn was scrapped, because somebody from Campbelltown would have to drive how far south when before they were going a few blocks.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I think this is the kind of thing that the public really appreciates, a response to a problem that we're going to fix.
So that legal
Yeah.
question is still one that you know, I'll ultimately leave up to date, but I
we need
believe
answers.
that it can be overcome, and it's up to a judge. You know, it would be up to a judge.
And then I do have one follow-up question concerning the law. You've addressed the 1,200, you've addressed your asking Dave to research if we can do this without looking at the whole county. But the third point that I seem to remember is that it's not at the whim of the commissioners, that voters in precincts have to physically petition the commissioners, almost like a petition, you know, that they pass around and say, we want more polling places. Has that occurred in all of these precincts?
No, and you don't need that.
No.
I have the statutes that for you, and I'll forward them to you. I can scan them and
We've
forward them all
certainly
to you.
been heard from a lot
Yeah.
of.
They might, you might be referring to a mechanism whereby voters can force you to do it by filing a petition. I'm not certain of that. It sounds like maybe if a certain number of petitioners, you know, petition the court, they may be able to force a division of a precinct. But as the election board, as I understand it, as the election board, you have the ability to redistrict these things.
We
Well,
can do the petition.
I was going to say, if we can get that
Well, it's right
particular
here.
question
Yeah.
answered in writing as well, that would be great.
Yeah, it just says the court shall upon petition divide or redivide any borough, township, or ward where voting machines are adopted or into election districts of compact and continuous territory.
Yeah.
So basically, instead of the voters doing the petition, we can petition on behalf to the court to do that. So yeah, I'll forward you that.
And
Yeah,
one more,
I think pretty comfortable about that one.
one more argument toward the difference between this time it was petitioned before and now is that I think we would make it known that the intention is to do the whole county. But right now, because of the circumstances being, you know, we're up against the presidential election, plus the voter directive from the governor, you know, to do the whole county right now is a burden. But whether or not the court accepts that, who knows? But this is to give you some food for thought to see if you would like the election office to move forward with this concept and, you know, get with the solicitor, get a petition developed for you guys to look at and move forward with.
I certainly do.
Can I add one thing? I think one of the things that we have not done a good job of in the election department is that we need to keep up with growth in our county, and we need to be continually looking at our precincts and how many registered voters we have in those precincts, so that we're not constantly having to look at the fact that the whole county at this point it has so many registered voters. Because I think that we should do a better job of when there is growth and when there is new communities built, which is great for our county, but we're also thinking about the impact on the voters, and do we need to split? Do we need to be looking at? And I think that's something that needs to continue to happen.
Sure.
I don't think that has happened, but I can tell you, for me, you know, once we get through this process and see what the court says, but I think that's something that we should be doing, because we should be we should never have gotten into the situation where there was 2 or 3 hour wait lines as there was in Campbelltown. That's an embarrassment, I think, for me in my office. That should never have happened. And so I think that's what, when I say let's look at these top 5, because I don't think we can go through another presidential election, because great for the people that live in that area, they vote, and that's awesome, and I don't ever want to alienate anybody, because I think that if we don't do anything, it's just going to be, and I agree. Even though we did add another voting machine there, and we worked on trying the best we can, that's not enough. We need to split it. We need to go there. And so I just wanted to make sure you're known that that's something I think that's part of my responsibility to do.
My follow-up question then is, your quotes, did they include these additional precincts?
They did.
They
yes,
did.
I quoted them. I asked for quotes for 60 precincts plus spares, because I didn't know, but I figured we can always go back and change it if it doesn't go through.
That's
But
very
the
good.
idea was to let's go with what we think will happen, and go from there.
So
So
the
that's.
quotes, yeah.
So I did basically 70. If I'm doing the one-on-one, I was looking at 70 because I was looking at 60 precincts, and I needed 10 spares because, like we talked, we have rovers. I always want to have a rover with a scanner and a ballot marking device that if anything ever goes down, we'll have the ability to replace them. Plus, we need to have one out here to be able to do voter education and things like that. So that's why we were looking at that. But yes, they're in there.
So no surprises if this goes through. You don't have to add to the quote.
It's good.
Okay.
Yeah, and for
Anything
the
else? Casey, any question?
I guess my question for you on this is I mean, just from what you've seen in concept, shall we go on to speak with Dave Warner
Absolutely.
and get, start to get something created that you would, ultimately you have to file it, so you would take action on filing it.
But then we'll know what the game plan can be going forward to look at others as well, but I think this is a hell of a good start.
I'd like just a little time to think about this, because it was all new to me today. I don't like to make decisions with getting new information.
You're not asked to make a decision, you just want to know if we want to move forward.
Well,
and-
we would be spending money to move forward, so I'd like to.
On what?
On opinions and things of that nature.
There would be a additional cost because we're talking about the fact that we
Our
probably
sol-
have to rent the whole
No,
location.
No, she's talking about to review this. Our solicitor is salaried, Commissioner.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're just trying to get off this first baby step here, which doesn't cost us any money. We just need to know legally what can we do before we.
Yeah, and all the information I'm gonna gather for the solicitor, because we know the judge has given us some good things of what we need to be looking for. I will definitely share all that with you as I find those answers. I know that Dauphin County, they all the time are looking at their voting precincts and splitting them because of just their size and their growth and things like that. So I will get on that.
I think if it's for the public good, that's hard for, not to, a judge to not allow for that.
Right. Well, the 1300 number too is also that's the election code from the 1930s. So one of the things that it's different now, and I understand that would be great, but at some point you can run a precinct with more voters than that in 2018.
Here's what I can, I guess, say in response to that. I'm not meeting with Dave Moore tomorrow. So, whenever that is that we get that set up, if there's something that you see that comes to mind and you want to let Mike or I know that we can pose to Dave, that's
I would
not hard to
appreciate
do.
that
So it's not, this isn't
time.
happening in a overnight
Forcing
basis.
someone to make a decision on the spot when you've just been given all that information is not fair.
I will forward all this information I put together to you, and I can also do all of the spreadsheets that we have as far as the number of voters that we just talked about. And the maps are in my office if anyone needs to see the maps as well. I guess, do you want me, Jamie, to just contact Dave, or how did you want to proceed with that?
Yes. Send it to him when you send it around, but I'll add it to the list of things we need to sit down with him on.
Okay.
That I need to, so with you.
With you, okay.
Growth and so on, It is difficult to do sometimes. If you know when the housing busts and booms are going to be, let me know.
Yeah, I know, I don't.
But,
I would be definitely the back end, once we get them registered,
um,
because it's not only they build them, but then they have to register.
Yeah, I mean, for 15 years, this county was growing like so many others, and in 2008 it stopped. And now it's back up again, and for the last couple of years, the builders haven't been busier than ever before. So you just have these fits and starts, and it depends on where the land is subdivided and so on.
Well, to that point, I just recently got from Julie projections on where development will occur in the next 5 years. And if Michael looks at that, I think that would be important to at least mentally factor in.
Well, I think the better news is the GIS even knows that. So you can, they're with planning. I mean, so Cherie can map out where
Yeah.
those potential or approved subdivisions are even before they're built.
Yeah, I'm just saying that we have number of housing units for the next 5 years that are already on the books to be proposed, and that could be a part of this equation.
Yep, and we already have a great working relationship with Cherie and with Andrew in GIS. They've been great with our changes and things like that, so good communication.
All right, well, if you don't mind factoring that in, I think that's something we should look at.
That would be more of the overall county. When we get to that. Okay.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
thank you.